This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com and buildermasterclass.com. My name is Todd DeWalt, and it's my job to help you eliminate chaos and maximize profits in your business and on your projects. I've got a great interview for you today with Byron Brooks. He's one of the owners of Brook Wright Developments, a construction management company in Calgary. And here's what you're going to learn. You're going to find out about how the Builders and Brews program that Byron's been working on and how it is bridging the gap between builders, designers, and architects. You'll hear about the mindsets that keep construction business owners from networking and sharing resources, and specifically the scarcity mindset that keeps us in that situation. You'll hear about how Byron's background has helped him deal with controlled chaos, as he calls it, including a time he had to paddle up to a job site in a canoe after a flood. You'll hear about fear setting and how Byron uses that. You'll hear about his, quote, "I want to be here in 10 years" philosophy, and how he uses potentially cringeworthy humor to connect with his clients. That's a little risky, but if used properly, it can be helpful. And then we spend quite a bit of time talking about how Byron stopped doing free estimates and started using pre-construction agreements, which I personally am a huge fan of. So this is a great interview, great conversation. I got a lot out of it, and I think you will as well. Before we get to that, there are a couple of things I have for you that may be valuable to you. If you're a busy construction business owner, there's a pretty good chance that you don't have good visibility into your financials. You could be getting financial reports too late, or maybe not getting financial reports at all. Or maybe you're not keeping your books up and you really don't have any idea what your numbers are. Well, if that's you, you're not alone. Scott Schweiger said this: "I highly recommend Apparatus Contractor Services. My small startup construction company was over a year behind with its bookkeeping. I was wearing way too many hats, and ultimately the books suffered. They provided bookkeeping solutions that got us caught up in the systems to stay on the right track. I'm so happy I'm turning over payroll processing to them as well." Elizabeth Evans said, "Hiring Apparatus was a game changer for our business. They've allowed me to grow our construction company over 100% since we hired them about a year ago." Bill, president of Spice Industries, said, "Hiring Apparatus was one of the best business decisions I've ever made. They have almost completely freed me up from sitting at my computer reconciling budgets with my own makeshift system." So if you want to offload your bookkeeping or payroll headaches, or you just want better reporting, the Apparatus Contractor Services team may be able to help you. Visit goapparatus.com to hear from other construction business owners and see how Apparatus can help you. That's goapparatus.com. LL Flooring is one of America's largest specialty retailers of hard surface flooring. They understand your floor is the foundation of your home style. That's why they offer over 400 floors, all at the best value, including Bella Wood hardwood floors, backed by a transferable 100-year warranty. Visit one of their over 400 stores to find the right hardwood, waterproof vinyl, laminate, bamboo, or tile flooring for your style. Their flooring experts will guide you every step of the way, from finding the perfect floor for your project to arranging safe, professional installation. LL Flooring has a variety of digital tools to help you transform your home. Use their Floor Finder tool to discover options for your project, and then use Picture It, their online visualizer, to see your new floor in your space before you install. For store locations, style advice, and more, visit llflooring.com/pro. These are the floors homes are built on. llflooring.com/pro. Okay, now let's get to that interview with Byron Brooks. Enjoy. Byron, thanks so much for being on the podcast. Where are you calling in from, and how are things going in that part of the country?
I am calling from a CCAN office in our shared working space in Calgary, Alberta. And things are going pretty good here. We've had some snow over the last couple of days, which is a bit of a drag, but we've got roofs on our projects and windows in, so we're styling. We're cruising into winter.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about your business. We're going to get into some of the issues of my Canadian friends call it the tender process. not the TINDER process. That's a very different podcast.
Yeah.
Talk about how disasters turn into opportunities. But let's start with 3 words. I really don't know what they're about, and I'll just let you explain it. But the 3 words are builders and brews. Talk about that, if you would.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. So, Todd, I think our industry has a problem historically sharing information with each other. And I think as we all get more used to the internet, which sounds silly because we've had it for 30 years now or something, all information is accessible. And I think it's time for our construction and design industry to catch up. So when I looked around for meaningful ways to do that, we just happened to be working in a craft brewery here. We were fitting out their tap room. And in Alberta here, over the last 5 or 6 years, the regulations around how you could brew beer changed. You used to have like a 500,000 liter minimum. So that provided a barrier to entry for most small brewers, right? But a couple of brewers got together and lobbied and fought that and got the rules changed. So they were able to brew craft beer in smaller batches. So as we were building up this tap room, I'd be there working with my guys on the millwork. And I'd see other brewers come in and I'd say, hey, what are you guys doing here? Like on the face of it, you're a competition. Why are you here? They said, oh, we need to help Erica and Andrew set up this equipment because we really screwed it up when we set up our brewery and we don't want them to make the same mistake. And I thought, okay, that's cool. Like these must be nice guys. Then a few days later, different brewers came in with a pallet full of bags. We're like, hey, what are you guys doing here? Oh, we had extra hops and we knew Annex needed it. So we thought we would just leave it here because they can brew it in their beer. And I thought, okay, there's a bit of a pattern happening here. Then a few more days went by. Then some guys rolled in with kegs. Again, kegs labeled from a different brewery. I was like, all right, what the heck? Like, why are you dropping off beer? Like, people don't show up at my job site and drop off lumber. It's just not something that happens. They said, oh, we know they're going to throw these doors open in a few weeks here whenever you guys are finally done what you're doing. And then they're going to need beer on tap. So we're going to give them some of our beer to sell. And so that, to me, I kind of recognized a pattern there. So then I pulled a couple of the brewers aside after and was like, hey, what is going on? Like, how are you guys doing this? And they explained to me that they recognize that by collaborating locally on things like sharing materials and ideas and resources and labor and marketing costs, they can build each other up locally to capture a bigger piece of the beverage market from like the InBevs and the Molsons and the Budweisers of the world. And that strategy has played out really strongly. It's been really neat to see how those breweries all work together and they create these kind of little like pockets of geography where they'll unite these breweries and they'll do like walking tours between each. And they don't like say, stay at our brewery and continue drinking here. They say, no, go try this new IPA that they've made over there. So anyway, so I thought that was really cool. So I reached out to some of my colleagues and said, hey guys, how can we do something like this in our industry? How can we pull from all the different disciplines, from designers, from vendors, from trades and builders like me and start leaning into this? And so from there, we started Builders and Brews, and we have events. I mean, COVID has slowed it down a little bit, but we're still keeping on. We have events every 3 months, and we do a small educational piece, but mostly we just provide a space for idea sharing and networking in a meaningful way. We call it networking for non-networkers because a lot of construction people, as I'm sure you know, just aren't natural. Hey, I'm Dave. I put up drywall. Like, can I help you? Like, we just don't do that, right? We go through kind of established channels. Designers are kind of the same, but on the opposite side, designers are happy to go out and drink wine with other designers, it seems like most of the time, but there's not a lot of that cross-pollination that happens. So it provides a forum for that. And it's just really resonated with people. We're setting up mentorship programs within there where even senior builders, to me, will try and connect them with younger builders. And so it's been really fun. It's been neat to see how that idea has resonated with the industry.
Yeah, I found the same thing. There's a city that my wife and I like to go to. It's Covington, Kentucky, which is just south of the river from Cincinnati, Ohio. And 20 years ago, Covington was pretty rough. Not some place you would go to hang out on a Friday or Saturday night. You certainly wouldn't sit outside, just for a variety of reasons. But now, all these restaurants and wine bars and boutique hotels have moved in. And I was talking to the executive chef at one of these places, one of our favorite places to go. And yeah, he knew the guys at the wine bar. He knew the chef over at the Hotel Covington, and they all worked together. And I thought that's interesting because I responded the same way you did. I would think you guys are in competition, but no, they're not trying to take a bigger piece of the pie. They're thereby taking something away from somebody else. They're trying to make the pie bigger, and they realize if we can get more people into Covington, then it's good for everybody. So they support direct competitors, peers, anybody that's working to bring people to Covington. So let's talk about how that, I want to talk about like what's the mindset that keeps builders from doing that in a minute. But what does that actually look like? How are you trying to make the pie bigger with these events? Are you bringing architects and designers in? Are you bringing young people to try to get them into the trades? Are you connecting general contractors with subcontractors? Like what exactly are you trying to accomplish, and who are you targeting with these events?
Yeah, so we started it through Instagram, and what we're trying to target, like, so our industry and every industry, I think, tends to kind of silo, right? Where you have in up here we have the Canadian Home Builders Associations. They have their local chapter or whatever, and it's kind of boring and like more of a stodgy sort of lobby organization, and that's for builders, right? So builders, you guys go over here, you can go pay $80 to go for a breakfast and talk to other builders. And that's nice, but it doesn't really move the needle at all. Same thing with designers, same thing with like the plumbers union and the plumbers association. Like they all kind of end up there. So we're trying to bring all those together in more of a social kind of low key environment. One of the stories I tell about it, and I think it's something people struggle with in our industry is. It's where we fit in so we have a custom home building business. We've been privileged to build quite a few high-end homes here in Calgary, get to do some interesting work. And the way I describe it is I draw that parallel where the construction industry is typically viewed as a commodity industry. Like you build 1 square foot, you try and drive down your input costs, you try and keep your sales costs high. That's the model. And I think that's the public perception of the model for our industry. Or for any industry, can be separated into craft and commodity. And so the people that are attracted to Builders and Brews, and the way we think about our work, is that we're on the craft side of the industry. And the story I tell is that you can go to Costco, you can buy a 50 pack or 48 pack of Budweiser for $1.05 a can, but you'll go to Covington and you'll spend $6 on a pint of beer and you won't hesitate. And that's a 500% something markup. But because you're getting a better product, you're getting a connection to the people that built it, and you're getting better service and a better experience. I think by weighing all those things in, I think both what they're trying to do there and what we're trying to do is educate clients, because that's one of the biggest things that I've struggled with in my career. Like I trained as a carpenter. I didn't train as like an emotional coach and a financial advisor and all these things it takes to educate clients. So I think ultimately that's part of our goal with Builders and Brews and with my company as well, to be established as a trusted partner and kind of climb that hill, form that foundation of trust with potential clients before you've gotten in the door. So that's also the message we're trying to spread through our community here.
Yeah. So let's talk about the mindset or the misconceptions that keep us siloed and keep us from sharing. I can tell you, I run a mastermind group of builders, and one of the only reasons that people open up, and maybe even one of the only reasons people join, honestly, the reason they join a mastermind group is because they know that they'll be in a group with somebody who's not a competitor. Therefore, they can, as I like to say, they'll open the kimono a little bit. They'll talk about their problems. They'll ask for ideas because they believe that opening up and being transparent is going to hurt them financially. So, what are some of the maybe some of the misconceptions or mindsets that you dealt with when you thought about having this, and maybe on a broader sense, what are some of the things that people struggle with when they are thinking about getting together with other people doing the same work who are potentially competitors with them?
So the way, and I'm sure people have heard this before, but it's that scarcity versus abundance mindset. So I choose to look at it through that abundance mindset, and I think life's too short to try and keep all those ideas secure and internal. Now, I'm not going to say that at Builders and Brews, I'm like putting up my year-end tax report up on the screen for everyone to see. That's kind of a next step that we haven't taken yet. We might form smaller groups that do that, but it's more been across the way it manifests itself now, which I think is one of the best ways, is like I have a few builders that are my friends and colleagues. I can text and say, hey, my tile guy flaked out. Like, do you guys have a good tile guy? And everyone's willing to be like, oh yeah, I use Dave. Here's his number. Tell him I told you to call. He's busy on my job for a week, but next week I know. Like, so that kind of sharing, the sharing of people and setting other people up for success, I think has been the easiest way to kind of break down that barrier. If I can turn around and ask you a question, I've heard about masterminds before, but I've never taken the next step to like Google it. Can you, what is that? Like, I can't be the only one who hears that term and never actually asks what it is.
Well, it's pretty much a cult, and I am the cult leader. And there's a ritual that's top secret, and we're basically trying to run the world. It's like the Bilderbergers, or it's very new age, new world order. No, nothing like that. It's essentially it's a virtual mastermind group. It goes back to Andrew Carnegie, the titan of the industry back in the early 1900s. He was a big fan of the mastermind, and for him, that meant he surrounded himself in his company with people who were much smarter than he was, and the collective mind was much better than the sum of the parts. And one of my favorite books, Think and Grow Rich, talks about the mastermind principle, that if you want to be successful, well, the way he would say it is, it's very difficult, maybe even impossible, to get where you need to be without having a mastermind. So what my mastermind group looks like would be, I place people of similar size businesses doing similar type work, who are not competitors, in groups where they can talk about specific topics. So once a month, we have a call. They get together and they spend about an hour with their group. In this call, they're starting to have calls on their own, and they have group chats set up. But it's really about we all get better together. So on our last call a few weeks ago, we were talking about change orders. So Mike in Arizona was having a problem with a change order issue, and Travis in Richmond, Virginia was doing very similar work. And he said, well, try this. And they're all sharing ideas, and they can share challenges. Honestly, the biggest part of it, if you strip away all the tactics and the strategy, what people get the most out of is just knowing they're not alone, and knowing they're not the only people dealing with these problems. Yeah. And so many people say, it's so good to know I'm not the only one who doesn't have this all figured out. So it's just having some support, because let's face it, I've been a construction business owner. It's lonely.
Yeah.
Because of that scarcity mindset. And I would, when you said you share subcontractors, there are a lot of people who probably responded by thinking, there's no way I would share my best subs. They're like a competitive advantage to me. So what would you say to those folks who think sharing is a competitive advantage, or giving away a competitive advantage?
Oh man, I would say they're probably wrong, because what we've seen is that it actually increases subcontractor loyalty, because we want to help remove pains in their business, and we do that through like paying promptly, whether we've been paid or not, because we have ourselves set up as a company that we can do that. And by sharing those guys, you say, oh, Byron, oh yeah, that's right, Byron referred me to these guys. And so next time I or one of my project manager's phones Dave, he's going to be like, yeah, for sure, I'll make it work. I'll come back. I just got to finish this, and I'll be over there. So I think setting your trades and trade partners up for success only increases your credibility and their willingness to do great work on your job sites, as opposed to the opposite. Because on the opposite case, maybe you can't keep them busy for a few weeks, so they go out and look for work for another builder, and they don't get paid, and now they're in a cash flow crunch, and now they're asking you to get paid to get a bigger advance or a deposit, and now you're getting the heebie-jeebies. So if you can set that person up for success, I think it's a win for everybody involved.
Yeah, that's a great point. A lot of, I shouldn't say this a lot. I've seen some general contractors who want to own their subcontractors, and they want to control their schedule, and they they just want to own them.
You mean like literally, like purchase their company, or own their actions?
Everything, but they want to control. Owning is probably wrong word. They want to control them. They want to control their schedule. They want to be able to tell them what to do. They want to keep them from working with other people. I've heard of general contractors saying, hey, if you go work for this guy, you're done with me because he's a competitor. And that's a classic scarcity mindset. And I've been a subcontractor. I wouldn't want to work for that person.
No, because you're always looking over your shoulder, and you're not. Yeah, no, that wouldn't that wouldn't work for me.
Yeah. So what does do you have any success stories that have come out of builders and brews, like relationships or any sort of wins that you can share?
For sure. One of the very first events that we did was on, and I'll see what you. I think we might delve into this later in terms of the tender process. So one of the first events that we did was we invited an interior designer, a well-known interior designer here in town, and an architect, and they gave on a presentation on the way they approached the pre-construction process. And it was one of those things where I had met with them on my own as Brook, right, as my home building company. And they told me how they approached this. And I said, like, shit, more people need to know about this because this is so much healthier. So the way they choose to approach the pre-construction process is they have a short list of vetted contractors. And then when they go through the initial design with the client, like just schematic, like early sketch on a napkin phase, then they say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Client, we now need to bring in our builder. So they bring in one of their 3 vetted builders, depending on like personality, budget, and schedule fit. Like they kind of assess that on their end, and they bring in that contractor, and then that's the contractor. Then they sign a pre-construction agreement where the contractor is being paid for the work they're putting in. That can be put together in different versions. Now we've actually come to a place where we perform that pre-construction work at an hourly rate with a cap. So let's say it's going to be $7,500. And if the project goes forward, we credit back half of that fee. If the project dies at that point, it's because the clients can't afford it. And then it kind of just goes away. So at least you've been paid for your time. But anyway, so these guys gave this presentation. It was like 45 minutes. It was well done. And it resonated with a lot of people. So what happened out of that, it led to a large project for us with that team, but then it also led to a couple of my builder colleagues, 2 of them actually specifically, called me like 3 to 6 weeks later and said, like, Byron, since we did that event, I haven't done an estimate for free, and my enjoyment of my work has increased dramatically. And that for me was like one of the biggest wins of that year, where like the charge I felt from being able to help them with that was huge, because I think it's a problem in our industry, that pre-construction process and that tender process. That I don't even want to say that there's bad operators out there. I mean, there is that component, but there's also just people that are naive, and I've been that person before. When you're putting together an estimate, we all have an optimism bias, and I think actually entrepreneurs are cursed with an even larger optimism bias, where it's like, okay, this project is probably 700,000, but you know what? We're going to find a way to do it for 450 because that's your budget. And inside, if you ask why a few times, you know that that's wrong, but you also know you won't get the sale if it's 700. So what needs to happen is there's a totally transparent, trusted team that's putting together that whole a quote, not an estimate, and aligning it with their scope, aligning it with the design, considering all the intangibles that exist within there, considering the tax, considering the contingency fee, the furniture budget, all these things, the design fees. And so we've had success with that. But that was one of the main ways it's played out, is those two builders and then a couple of others later that came back and said, hey, like that dramatically improved the way we approached this phase. And then again, that trickles out because there were designers in the crowd too. And they thought, oh, I don't do it that way. Like I've had designers come and tell me that that's the biggest pain point for them is the misalignment between estimate and actual cost. It's like, okay, well, that's because of the tender process. So we need to fix that before we can start pointing fingers.
Yeah, I have actually spent, here we are in October 2020, I've spent the last probably 4 to 6 weeks digging into that problem. And as I worked with builders and remodelers that have done it myself, it became apparent to me that the root cause of a lot of uncomfortable conversations with clients, a lot of blown budgets, a lot of blown schedules, a lot of unsolicited charity, as I call it, which is doing work and not getting paid.
Yeah.
If you did a root cause analysis, you would trace it back to 2 words: free estimate.
Mm-hmm.
And the people come to me and say, man, I need to get better at estimating, and I need to get better at dealing with change orders, or I need to get better at negotiating with clients. And I say, you're playing whack-a-mole. You're saying, I want to get better at playing whack-a-mole where I can whack the moles in the game faster. Yeah. And I'm saying, hey, let's get to the root cause and let's eradicate the moles and let's completely rethink the process. Because you can get better at having difficult conversations or get better at negotiating change orders or whatever the case may be. But the answer is put together a detailed proposal on the front end and get paid for it.
Yep.
So I actually created a masterclass called Get Paid for Estimates. And it's an absolute game changer. It's actually, the more I work with people, I'm like, this is where you need to start. You don't need to go try to be more productive on the job site or do other things. If you're a builder or a remodeler doing complicated projects with any complexity, you need to get paid for estimates. You need to use pre-construction agreements. That's going to solve so many problems because you have time. Well, it's the list is too long, but it's an absolute game changer, and I couldn't agree more.
Well, one of my favorite parts about it is that I think when you get to a certain point with a construction company, what becomes more important, or any company probably, is the things you say no to. So what we're always looking for is ways to qualify clients early, and this paid pre-construction is the best way to qualify clients early. If they balk at spending like 0.3% of the budget, to potential budget, because nobody knows what it is at that point, but if they balk at spending that upfront, then they're probably not your clients, and you're better off to walk away. And we also, part of the language that we use to kind of sell it or explain the process to the clients is at the end. So there's 2 distinct phases of work. There's the pre-construction and there's the construction. Let's not think of them together. Let's put the construction away. We think of the pre-construction over here, and there's a defined set of deliverables for that. Your deliverable is you have a construction schedule. You have it backed up by sub-trade quotes. Some are single source, but most of them would be multiple bid with our vetted subcontractors. So you have this deliverable, which is basically a package that you could take and build the house yourself, or you could tender that out again if you wanted to. And that has happened to us in the past, and that's painful, but you have to be okay with letting that go and moving on to find clients that more properly align with the values that you use to operate your company. I would love to. Kevin Gray is the name of the interior designer that did that initial presentation for us, and I'd love to connect you with him, or I would encourage people to look him up. just because of the way he's thinking about that pre-construction process from the design side was really refreshing, because that's often where it falls apart in my experience. Is you kind of have to explain it, sell it to the designer first, and then you have to get them to like fully have your back and present like a team. And that's been almost the most difficult part. And he has a really good perspective on that. So yeah, I'd encourage people to check that out.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll, at the end of this podcast, if you're interested in, for those of you listening, if you're interested in some resources on getting paid for estimates and making, as I like to say it, make your last free estimate, because that's really what you need to do if you're a general contractor of any type. I'll have a link with more information there. So let's shift gears and talk about how the 2013 Calgary floods, which were a disaster, turned into an opportunity for you.
Yep. Canoeing down the streets where I had worked 2 days before was a uniquely Canadian experience that I never want to repeat again, to go clean up our job sites. So we had been working on a couple of large homes with another contractor. And then we had this flood event in 2013 where the Elbow River, which runs through a couple of our higher end neighborhoods, and then the Bow River, which runs next to downtown, they both kind of merged and flooded everything. So it was quite a problem. But what that turned into was like a launching pad for construction companies, one of which was ours, because all of a sudden, all this work in the area where we were anyway got kind of cut loose. So we had some clients that had a beautiful home designed by Bolin Swinsky Jackson, an architect out of the States, and they had moved in 6 months prior to the flood. So then the flood occurred, and they invited my partner and I, my business partner, back to do the flood restoration. And then that turned into a couple more houses down the street, and that turned into another new build with those architects. And it kind of went on from there. And we still have a few of our core group of guys from 7 years ago are all still together. So yeah, it was crummy. And then I purchased a home in that neighborhood as well, kind of foolishly thinking, okay, I'm working here anyway. I'll live here for 2 years and I'll flip it and move on. But since then, I ended up having kids and really liking the neighborhood, and so we've stuck around. So a couple of benefits came out of that bad event.
In the canoe, while you were paddling down the street, were you saying, "Wow, this is going to be a great opportunity. This is going to be great for us," or was it something else?
No, it was grim. I was actually getting married a week later as well, so it was like it was a whole situation. So if you can imagine the chaos that was occurring. But I have to say the city really came together and helped everybody kind of muck out all these homes. And then it became an issue of like, all right, let's not lose our heads and fly into this. Let's make a plan and let's get going. And I think that was appreciated by our clients, where we put things back together properly in a way that's designed to mitigate the damage from future potential high water events. So yeah, no, it was chaos. My wife bugs me because I have a theory about controlled chaos. So I moved a lot when I was younger, 21 times by the time I was 23, and I had 4 younger siblings, and so we moved all over Canada and the States. But I think that the chaos of those moves and of like just things always changing, I think that actually contributes to success in a construction business. You need to be comfortable with a certain amount of discomfort and chaos, and like there's some things you can't control, and you need to do your best within that. So anyway, that controlled chaos experience definitely helped there, because it was a calm head was kind of a rare thing. So it was nice to be able to provide that.
So here's what I've found is that, this is my theory anyway, the key to being a successful entrepreneur, whether it's in construction or any other field, I don't think it has that much to do with strategy or tactics. I think it has to do with managing your emotions and managing your thoughts and how you respond to things. So it sounds like you were accustomed to chaos and changes. Do you have any strategies that you use when things appear to be going wrong, or there seems to be chaos and things aren't going in the right direction? Like, how do you stay focused and stay moving forward and not panic?
Yeah, 100%. Okay, I've got a few strategies here. One thing that I like to do is just some fear setting. It's very easy, and it's our nature as kind of service oriented entrepreneurs to absorb our clients' fears and anxieties and try and solve them, try and fix them right away. But I do a fear setting exercise where I say, okay, this client's septic alarm is going off. Like, she's calling me on a Sunday night. Okay, what's the worst that can happen? Okay, the worst that can happen. We go down there, we shut the septic off. We have to put a pump in the mechanical room, which is tubbed and safe. Okay, it'll stink, but we can solve that. Like, you carry through where people are panicking. It can be anything. Okay, we need to dip into our line of credit to pay these invoices. What's the worst that can happen? Okay, if that client, but just doing a fear setting exercise, and what you come to realize is that we're blessed to live in the place we live in North America. All of our problems amount to like not that big a deal often. Like, your health isn't in jeopardy, your family isn't in jeopardy. You can solve all these problems by just stepping back and looking at them objectively. From a business standpoint, one thing that we like to use is we're always telling ourselves, be here in 10 years. So think about having your company in 10 years still, because then that starts to inform the decisions you make today. Like the $3,000 you might lose because you need to replace a vanity that was wrong. It's nobody's fault. It's just the client doesn't like it. Something happened. Maybe the stone guy dropped something on it. He can't pay for it. So the $3,000 you might lose now is going to pay dividends later, because you're looking at it with the mindset of, I want to be here in 10 years. So you can forego $3,000 in your pocket to pursue 300,000 in a few years. So that's one strategy that helps. I also I'm reading a book called Moments, or The Power of Moments, right now. And so it describes the client's emotional journey in terms of peaks and valleys. And the irony there is that you can often turn a valley, so a low point, like all these cracks in my floor, like the concrete floor, you can turn that low point into a peak by the way you respond to crisis. And that's what your clients need from you. So what they found in this book is that some of the most negative experiences, the way the service provider responded to them, ended up turning into the most memorable experiences 6 months later or a year later. And that's our job as builders and as guides for our clients through the emotionally fraught process of building a custom house.
Yeah. Yeah, I found the same thing. Whenever there's a crisis, I see it as an opportunity to strengthen the relationship with the client. It's an opportunity to be the hero. And maybe it's your fault, maybe it's not, but you can't do anything about that. It's what really matters is, how do we respond? How are we going to handle this? And if you show up, I've had self-created crises, things where I've really dropped the ball and have come out on the other side stronger, with a stronger relationship. I had a client that I took over an account. I was running a company, and I frankly had to fire the project manager off of our biggest account, who happened to be the owner's son, which that was fun. And I stepped in, and there was some really bad blood between my primary contact with the client and our company. This father-son team they were pretty unique. And the client was not happy. He had dealt with years of abuse from my owner and his son. And I remember the first day I went out to a job site, and there was some issue that came up, and I met with the client. His name is Vernon. And he cussed me out, and it had nothing to do with me. It was all about the way my company had treated him. And I just took it. And okay, all right, you're right. And I could have argued with him, but that would not have helped. And within a few months, we had solved those issues. We were good friends. We're going out to dinner together with our wives, and the relationship was strengthened. So, but it really, I think in those situations, you have to take the long view, because if you think about, wow, this guy's mistreating me right now and things should be different and I didn't do anything wrong, then you're gonna lose. You're gonna do some dumb stuff. So to me, the ability to have that perspective, all right, what's the right thing to do so that we're here in 10 years?
Yeah.
That's going to get you where you need to be. And here's what I've found is that most of the things that frustrate us, the things that tend to get us off our game, they don't even actually exist, right? Because the things that frustrate us are the things that should have happened, but they didn't, or things that could have happened, but didn't, or we compare our situation, our current reality, to some fantasy land that doesn't exist, and that's where we get disappointed. So what I found is that just embrace the current reality, and because it's really all you have. And I think that goes along with fear setting, because like in that situation, the fear comes from the unknowns. What's going to happen? What's she going to do? How much is this going to cost? How much? What's going to be the fallout from this problem? And if you just focus on the reality, okay, here's what we're going to do. And then if that happens, here's what we're going to do. And you make a plan. I found that fear doesn't really have much power in the known world, because fear lives out there in what if land. And the more you have that logical conversation, the more power you take away from fear.
Yeah, totally. And if you let it, it can spiral, and it can make a little problem become your main priority. And then you're forgetting all the things that are going right on the other side over here, because you've got this one perceived problem. So yeah, just stepping back, like it sounds stupid, but it's as simple as like just pushing back from your computer, from your phone, and going for a walk, taking a few breaths and thinking about it. And you'll find that often those problems aren't that big a deal. Or like you said, or in your cult, like I think that's important. Having somebody you can call in those moments to say like, hey, this is going on. Often your colleagues will kind of talk you off that ledge of whatever you were thinking about doing as a kind of response. Like use that tool, like use the phone a friend tool. And I think that helps solve a lot of those knee-jerk reactions to those perceived problems. One thing triggered there while we use internally, because things happen on job sites, problems occur, and then it becomes how you deal with those problems that defines you. And so we use the language that this, like whatever problem occurred, it's not our fault, but it is our responsibility. So we as the builders have a responsibility to our clients to deal with this problem. Fault is almost a sideline. Like, yes, it happened. Yes, he did it. It was a result of his action or inaction, but it's our responsibility to correct it on behalf of our clients. And that's been helpful for my team to kind of shut down finger pointing almost right away and kind of unify. They say also nothing unifies like a shared struggle. So it's like define that shared struggle. We're trying to build this house and get the clients moved in by March. That's our struggle. We share it. Let's all move it forward. You can bring your trades into that quite easily as well. And that's been nice to see on site. And one last thing that we do is we recognize that while we're a custom home building company, we're a company that builds things. Ultimately, we're a service company. And if the experience of building that house wasn't good, like, I don't know if you've seen it, but I've interacted with clients. I went to look at a renovation actually recently, where the guy, he had just built a brand new house in a different part of town. And he said it was great. The house looked good, but the experience of building the house was so sour that he couldn't stay there. It was almost like the house was haunted with his bad experience through the construction process. And so that was kind of eye-opening for me, where I was like, oh, wow, like you can nail every detail, you can stick the budget, you can stick the schedule, everything. But if you treated the client like shit, it's a failed job. So accepting that, yeah, we build things, but ultimately we're a service company. So we need to think that way and take lessons from that industry to really excel at our jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, one of the drums I've been beating for the last couple of years is telling people, look, things are changing. The days of just hitting scope, schedule, budget, and that being good enough are just about, if not already gone. Your clients are not just looking for a result, they're looking for a result with an experience, and they will go find somebody. And there are companies emerging that are saying, you know what, I think we can, that our value proposition here is going to be, we'll build a great product, but you're going to have a great experience too. And people will pay for it. And I think in 10 years or so, there will be a lot of builders who are selling their business or closing their doors. And they're great builders, but they didn't communicate, and they didn't value experience, and they didn't take care of their employees. I heard a story about, this is similar. There was an old gentleman who was probably in his late 80s, and he had owned a construction company, and he had a large piece of property with a shop and an office, and he used to do a lot of utility and excavation work in the city. And it was a pretty good sized company, but this facility had been vacant for like 10 years because he closed his business down. And he was walking around the property with a potential buyer who happened to be a construction business owner. And he told the potential buyer, he said, you gotta rule your employees with an iron fist. And I heard about that, and I said, well, that's why he's selling an empty building, because nobody wants to work for that guy. That stuff worked 50 years ago. And I'll bet he shakes his fist and says that, and also says, you just can't find good people these days. And he's the problem. It's his mindset. That's the problem. So if you're listening to this thinking, oh, customers are a pain in the butt, all they want to do is talk about their feelings and all this crap, I'm like, well, you're not just a builder. You're in the service business. And if you have employees, I would say you're also in the people business too. So it's what you signed up for, and if you choose to embrace it, it can be quite fun. I wonder, I'm going to turn things around again if I can, but I wonder what strategies you've seen that people have employed successfully to both incentivize their employees' performance. I mean, we all know some of the answers to that one, but I'm curious if you've dug into that more, and specifically if you have any experience with people who have pursued what's called an ESOP up here, an employee share ownership plan. Yes. The question that I usually get is, hey, Todd, I want to set up some sort of profit sharing or financial incentive plan so that my people will take ownership. I want to compensate people. And here's what, I actually had a conversation with somebody about this a couple of weeks ago. And here's the thing, that question is based on the assumption that financial compensation is a good or the best form of motivation. And the reality is, research and psychology has found that financial incentives can often have a negative effect, which sounds kind of crazy because everybody thinks a bonus is a good idea. But if you look at psychology and you look at research, they have found that financial incentives have a negative effect in many cases. And that's a long story. You can go look. There's a TED Talk by a guy named Daniel Pink. If you just Google Daniel Pink TED Talk motivation, you'll probably find it. So here's my advice. I typically steer the conversation differently and say, let's look at what really motivates people. And it's the question is not how do I motivate people? It's how do I find their motivation? Because I don't believe that I can motivate you. I don't believe I have to. And I don't think you can motivate me. I think if you want me to operate at my potential, and if I want somebody on my team to operate at their potential, I need to help them find their own motivation. So what causes people to act motivated? These are facts. It's trust and autonomy. So when people feel trusted and they feel autonomous, feel like they have control over their actions and their destiny, they operate with what looks like high motivation because they're hitting on all cylinders. So if you want people to operate at a high level, then create an environment where they feel trusted and they are autonomous and they are making decisions and they are coming up with their own plans. And that's really a trust and autonomy. And I think there is a place for a financial incentive program for the right people at the right level. But what I found is that if you set up a financial incentive plan, it can backfire against you if it's not set up properly. So my advice is don't start there.
Yeah.
You don't have to. And I can tell you, a guy brought me in to run his company, and I was able to grow it from like 15 employees up to around 50 employees over the course of 3 years. Really toxic environment in the beginning, and I was able to turn that around. And one of the things I did, and this is what I would advise anybody to do, would be to come up with a recognition program. So most people, myself included, tend to go toward negative reinforcement, right? So let's catch people doing stuff wrong. Let's be the auditor. Let's be the safety inspector. Hey, you did this wrong. This is what you need to do differently. And auditing people. And that just doesn't work. Again, research has shown that positive reinforcement is the only thing that works. So what I did was I thought, okay, what is the behavior that I want to see more of that will make other behaviors go away, make other bad behaviors go away on their own, and just be like a lead domino. So I thought, if I can reward people who go the extra mile, they just do more than they have to. If I can reward that behavior, that will solve a lot of problems. So I created the extra mile program. And anytime somebody went the extra mile, their supervisor would nominate them for it. And if they did anything that looked like going the extra mile, they got a t-shirt and a gift card and some recognition. And that had way more impact than if I had tried to come up with some complicated bonus or profit sharing system, because whenever they went the extra mile and did more than they thought they had to, they got rewarded. And that just showed up in a lot of different ways.
Cool. Well, that's a good strategy. We've talked about doing something similar, but maybe that's the impetus I need to move that forward a little bit.
Yeah, my advice is start really simple, start discretionary. If you want to start somewhere, then just start catching people doing things right. Decide on a couple of behaviors that you really want to see that will act like lead dominoes, and then actively go out and try to catch people doing the right thing. And I picked this up from my wife. She was a kindergarten teacher for years, and whenever I was in her classroom, she understood this better than most. She would. Yeah. There were other teachers who would say, "Sit down, be quiet, raise your hand, stop this, stop this, stop this, stop this." Well, at the beginning of the year, difficult kids would come in and they're unruly and they don't want to raise their hand and all this sort of stuff. And my wife would say, "Ooh, I like the way that you're raising your hand. Oh, you're doing a great job sitting there quietly. And thank you for whatever the positive, whatever the right behavior was." And within days, these kids are like, "Ooh, I like that. I want that positive reinforcement." And then when they get the positive reinforcement, it feels amazing. They're like, "I'm hooked on that. Let's do that again. That's way better than getting yelled at." And within a couple of weeks, she has these unruly kids that nobody could do anything with, just playing ball. And it's because positive reinforcement is the only kind of reinforcement that works.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. So
kindergarten.
Let's I got a couple of questions here I want to ask you that I try to ask everybody. Number one is, what is, well, I don't want to be presumptuous. Is there a failure or apparent failure that you've experienced in life or career that has set you up for later success?
So again, like any failure at the time, it felt like a really hard failure, but in retrospect, it looked good. And that actually relates directly to the tender process that we were talking about before. We had done that flood restoration with same architects. They invited us to do a new build. We did that one. then they had another project come up, and we bid on that one. We thought we had it as a shoe-in. We bid for free. This was a few years ago. Put a whole estimate together. It went really well. And then we just didn't get the job, which was devastating at the time. That would have been like a year and a half worth of work for us. And it checked all these boxes. So we got kind of excited. We did not get that job, which, like I said, was devastating. But right now we're building a house that's just down the street, and it's 3 times the value. And that other house is still under construction.
Ooh.
So, and this was like 4 or 5 years ago. So looking back now, it felt like it hurt, but we were ignoring some warning flags that existed within that project. And the lesson I took away from that is don't ignore those warning flags. I use the metric, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And that particular project had a couple of, it was not a hell yes. It was this would be great, and we can overlook these things. And so, yeah, so that's one that we kind of pulled out of, which we regretted at the time, but do not now.
If you're willing to share, what were those red flags that you saw back then?
The red flags were the client was very, very intelligent, but also very involved. So like from the beginning, we were, okay, we like to use this window type. We've used it with these architects successfully before. Oh, but I found this one in Austria that I think we should explore. Okay, I'll go follow that and I'll look into that. And then, and I found this other one. So, okay, I'll go for free, follow that. So there were some things like that at the bidding phase that were already kind of red flags. We also got we presented the budget. It was 1.8 or 1.9 million. And we got that's too expensive. You need to reduce the cost. And we're okay, well, are you going to reduce scope? Oh, no, we just think that's too expensive. Okay, well, those don't line up. We can't, we're being fully transparent. There's the cost, there's the subtrade quotes. That's what it is. We've learned from performing 2 projects with these same architects. We know how this rolls out. And that just wasn't heard. So we could tell there were some things going on like that. It was also a remote project for us. It was about an hour out of town. So we had a travel allowance put in there, and that was just unacceptable as far as they were. There was some weird, hard negotiating going on that wasn't based in facts. It was just based in their kind of opinion that it was too expensive. So that's how we noticed it, and I've seen it since on other projects. And like I said, that power of that pre-construction as an early qualifier would have benefited us in that, and that experience would have saved me 3 or 4 months of working for free on that package.
Yeah. There's two ways to win through the pre-construction agreement in a situation like that. Number one, you would get paid for your time. Let's say you did decide, you know what, I think we can try to make this work, and you go through with it and you get paid for your time. But then you realize these people are not the right fit, and there is no way we want to spend the next 12 to 18 months with them. Then at the end of the pre-construction phase, you can say, here are your deliverables. And you know what, we're not the right fit. And Our advice is take this information, you've paid for it, take it somewhere else, but we're out. And the beauty of the pre-construction agreement is it gives you an opportunity to take them for a test drive. You get to court, you get to date a little bit before you jump in bed together and get married and have kids and all the stuff that goes along with having dealing with a 12 to 18 month project. So yeah, absolutely. Here's another one of my favorite questions. What is something that you believe to be true about business that some might think is unconventional, maybe even a little crazy?
We have these things. So I think there's a place for humor and humanity in all of our interactions. And I think when you peel that away, you just become a robot. So we have these things, these cringeworthy moments, we call them, where, like I said, that initial sales part and signing the contract, I don't know if you've ever seen that graphic of the homeowner's emotional roller coaster, but the first low happens at contract signing. So it's a great place to use humor to kind of diffuse the tension. Now, you need to use it very carefully. But so we've had a couple of cringeworthy moments where my partner, I'll send out an email and my partner's CC'd on it, and he'll be like, "Oh, I don't know if he'll text me. I don't know if you should have sent that." And so then we just wait. But the one that I'm talking about was we had this big house that we were bidding on, and we went out there. We met with the clients, went good, and then she sent us the list of questions, like who's on your team, who'll be doing the work, what references, all the questions, and you've kind of seen a form of them probably in the past. And they said, "Do you have any questions for me?" And so she had made some kind of jokes about her husband, and he liked exotic cars, and we had joked about building a bat cave, and she said, "Do you have any questions for me?" So I put in there, "Well, we'd like to meet your husband to ensure he's not a complete wingnut before we get involved in this process." And she said that she was laughing. She read it in the car. She was laughing from getting out of the car to into the kitchen because her husband kind of is a wingnut. And then I just touched on that moment. And so she said, on paper, she should have selected another contractor, but because of the humor and the way we presented ourselves, she felt like she should work with us. And that went on to be a large project that carried us through 2+ years of work. So there's a place for humor in our work, and it has to be used judiciously, but it can make the difference in making yourself a human.
Yeah, and that goes back to the concept that customers want to have a good experience, and part of that is your personality. Excuse me. So, great advice there. Pardon me. All right, so we are running out of time here. Tell us a little bit about your business. What's the name of your company? And pardon me. Pause.
All good.
Got a little emotional there, apparently. So let's try that again. So if people want to connect with you, what is the name of your company? Where can they find you, whether it's a website, social media, et cetera, if they want to reach out, or maybe they want to connect with you and attend a Builders and Brews event whenever the world gets closer to normal?
Yeah, no, that would be nice. So my company's called Preconstruction. Like I said, a custom home building up here in Calgary, Alberta, and surrounding areas. Best place to find us there is Instagram, just at Brookwright Construction. The website as well would be brookwright.ca or .com. That's Brookwright with a W. And Builders and Brews is at Builders and Brews YYC. On Instagram, and that would be the best place to kind of see what's going on there and see a couple more videos from some of our members and learn a little bit more about what we're doing there. And if I can insert a little call to action to foster that kind of collaboration. If you're a builder or a trade and you're on Instagram, just start making a habit of tagging the people that did the work in your photos. Like, you'll see a lot of photos where it's like designed by this, and then it just kind of falls flat. But there are people that built all that stuff. So start giving them credit. Don't be afraid to put those names out there. If people have done work you're proud of, it's like a version of that recognition system that you're talking about with your trade partners. So I'd encourage all builders to start tagging your trades in your Instagram posts.
Great advice. Yeah, recognition. Tag your employees, tag your tradesmen, tag your subcontractors, tag your suppliers. People love free promotion, and it is a fantastic way. It's the best way I know of to build your network. So great stuff. Well, Byron, man, I really appreciate it. This has been a great conversation, and thanks so much for taking the time to be on here.
Thank you very much. This is fun for me as well.
LL Flooring offers over 400 floors in both the latest styles and timeless looks, from hardwood and laminate to waterproof flooring. There's a floor for any style and every budget. Visit the experts at your local store or go to llflooring.com/pro. These are the floors homes are built on. There you go. Make sure and check out the show notes to get the links mentioned in this interview. Be sure to connect with Byron. Go check out the Builders and Brews program. Take his advice. Remember, this is all about implementation. If all you do is listen to this stuff and nod your head and say, yeah, that's a great idea, I should do that, that's a great idea, somebody should do it, then nothing's going to happen. It's all about implementation. So pick one thing that you heard and implement it. That's it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect, but one thing that's implemented halfway is better than a head full of ideas that you don't ever do anything with. And if you are interested in some of the resources that we talked about, specifically how to get paid for estimates using a pre-construction agreement, if you want a head start on that and you want to get some resources on that, head over to buildermasterclass.com. I have some training resources on that subject, one of my favorite subjects lately, as well as preventing change order headaches, eliminating customer communication chaos, lots of stuff over there. Head over to buildermasterclass.com. If you want to schedule a call with me, if you're a construction business owner, go to constructionleadingedge.com. There's a big red button that says something like schedule a call with Todd. We'll jump on a call, talk through your roadblocks, and I'll do everything I can to help you if you're a construction business owner. And lastly, if you could leave a rating and or a review on the podcast player of your choice, it would mean a lot to me, and it also helps get the word out there to the rest of the internet. So thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I appreciate the messages, the ratings, the reviews, and if there's anything I can do for you, you know where to find me. As always, thank you so much. My name is Todd DeWalt, and I will see you next time.